I'm listening. I'm not hearing anything. I'm listening. Okay, a little bit.
Can you hear
I'm not
now?
hearing anything.
Uh, I can hear
Okay.
you. I can hear you. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. We should yeah should be live now.
Yeah. Good. Good. Good.
Yes. Okay. Um, are we waiting for someone today? Someone.
Uh, no. George has already sent his brief, his
Mhm.
outline, which I love him, but absolutely never pay attention to because we don't follow our own outlines, no less George's outline.
Mhm. Yeah.
So just as soon bounce from whatever topics that we have
Right.
lined up.
Um, is there anything you want to start?
Yeah, let's see. We have this. Close this out. Close this out. Whoops. Let's see here. Where is my list? Here's my list. You said John Gilbert Getty dead at 52. Yeah, it does help to have more than one screen.
Yeah.
Kat, good to see you. With Nats, Robin, John Wang.
Getty, John Gilbert Getty here.
All
Grandson
right, so
of.
I'll catch up. I'll catch up. John Gilbert Getty, son of Gordon Getty, son of John Paul Getty.
Mhm. Uh, Grandson of J.P. Getty, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The
So
well,
here are my takeaways. Oh, don't we have a 52 club?
yeah, it was 52 or 53, right? It was 52.
I thought it was the 52 club. Is it the 52 club?
Uh, yeah. For some reason, I think it was 53. But it's right
Thereabouts.
there. Yeah.
Thereabouts. Let's see here.
When was the Pauline die, right? Was 52 or.
I think you're right.
Uh,
I think it was 53.
Pauline, Robert.
Pauline
Yes,
Pierce,
yes,
Barbara Bush's mother.
53. No, uh, yeah, I put up the Pauline Robinson. She died at 1953, or 3 years over. Yeah.
Oh, 53 at 53.
At,
And before I get into the details of John Gilbert Getty, I have another. I thought it was 52.
mm,
Uh, George Kyriakos Paniaitou.
Japanese or
No, Greek.
Greek? Ah, Greek.
You don't know who George Kyriakos Paniaitou is?
No.
Wham.
Yes, George.
Wham.
That's true.
Who is that?
His stage,
George.
George is piping up. His stage name was George Michael.
Ah, George Michael. Okay.
Dead at 53, supposedly of an enlarged heart and a fatty liver.
George. He's the singer, right? Or is the no?
Correct.
Ah. Mm,
Thanks for having our back, heretics. Love you back.
okay.
And here, let me do the takeaways for George Kyriakos Paniaitou. He was Greek, both in derivation and lifestyle,
Mhm.
and claimed that his the lower half of his left ass cheek was Jewish, and that's how he got into music.
Hmm.
His great great grandmother's hairdresser dog sitter
Okay.
spoke with a Jewish accent, so that led everyone to believe that she was Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
He also, according to Vadipedia, he was turned homosexual by, quote, his environment. I don't know if
Johnny,
his environment. Go ahead, George.
Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, aka AOC Sandy Cortez, says that she searched her family tree, her genealogy, and it turns out she has like 132nd Ashkenazi Jew in her. Also,
Well, she's going to be our first or second female president, so that might help. But it's a lot more helpful in the entertainment industry. And by the way, uh, Georgios Kyriakos Peniatou died on Christmas Day in 2016 at 53
Okay.
for the 53 Club.
Okay. Christmas Day. Huh?
Christmas Day.
Hmm.
Found by his
there
quote
was a
unquote partner.
How he died in a hotel room?
No, in his mansion with his partner.
Mm, okay. His mansion.
That's the 53 Club. Okay, you ready for the takeaways on John Gilbert Getty? My takeaways on John Gilbert Getty.
Mm-hmm.
52 years old, listed as a musician,
Uh,
in healthy air quotes, a musician. Needless to say, John Gilbert Getty did not need to worry about where his next Happy Meal was going to come from.
mm-hmm.
Therefore, he had extra time
To
to,
indulging. Yeah.
yeah, he could have been an artist, and large groups of people would have shat themselves over his brilliant uh, color by numbers works.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, for us conspiracy theorists, in a situation like that, where you have particularly the offspring of the elite who don't have to worry about earning a living and working, or don't have to worry about knifing their fellow human beings in the back
Mm-hmm.
in order to get their next 2, 3, 4 million, as their progenitors did.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of spare time on your hands for prostitutes, porn actors and actresses, hard narcotics, and various other illegal and illicit activities that you can always use your money to buy yourself into and out of.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, as a result, premature death, although sensational and or exotic, unfortunately is not necessarily foul play in relation to the rich and shameless without more information.
Right.
Um,
Are
but
are you seeing my screen right now? The
I
the
will
screen I'm
let me take a
showing
look. Hold on.
is a picture.
I'm looking at his picture on the
Yeah.
screen.
Do you see two icons on his left? You see
Oh, good for you. Well done. Yes, yes, yes. We've got a bit of a Jesuit
a
sunburst star there.
sunburst. Yeah.
Specifically, listen,
Yes.
specifically with
Specifically.
the wavy and straight lines. And then we have a bit of a Templar cross there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, this is interesting. Okay, so let's lead into this. What else? What are the other takeaways? What are the other takeaways? The other takeaways are John Gilbert Getty, son of Gordon Peter Getty, son of John Paul Getty. Now, if you go further back in the Getty line, the original baby eating Gettys don't seem to be very Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
However, by the time that you get to Gordon Peter, is it Gordon Peter Getty, the father of John Gilbert? We're looking pretty damn Catholic.
Gordon Peter Getty, yeah.
Gordon Peter Getty, raised in San Francisco, attended St. Ignatius College Prep and the University of San Francisco. Now, the University of San Francisco sounds public, but it's actually a Jesuit institution. So multiple Jesuit institutions. And Gordon Peter had 7 children, to include Andrew, who died in 2015 of meth intoxication, and John Gilbert, who died just recently, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, John Gilbert died on
7 kids. And as I mentioned to you in my email,
2 days ago.
That particular brood of Gettys being in San Francisco puts them in close proximity to Bohemian Grove and Bohemian Grove up there in the woods, and the Bohemian Club right there in the city proper. And of course, the Grove and the club, all managed by the Roman Catholic Knights of Hubertus. And whichever one of your children is singing, put them in a conference room.
Gonna get used to this.
I'll just listen on your end. Okay. I'll just listen here and enjoy it. So what else? Oh yeah. So and I want to remind the audience, by the way. Let me check the chat. How are we looking in the chat? Luke Lauren. Is Nana there? Yeah, I saw that.
Let me double check what's going on real quick.
Yeah, just want to make sure everybody's there. So let me Charlie. Let me remind everyone that the Getty clan used and abused their wealth, Alice Garcia, to scarf up and copyright any troubling photographs on behalf of the Vatican. Any troubling media. Lithographs, paintings, photographs. There are 100-year-old paintings that Getty has. Get the heck out. So this is a great. So Ridley, you can jump in if you want. This happens all the time. All the time. I have people telling me all the time, Yay ScrewTube has unsubscribed me from your channel.
Yep.
This happens all the time. So Ridley's telling me he's found... That's interesting. Are you able to see if I'm subscribed to you or not?
I don't think I can check on that. Like specifically.
Oh, so you're saying that happened to you. I'm subscribed to you, but you have been unsubscribed to me. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
Not the first time I've had people subscribe to my channel say, I didn't get a notification and I went and looked and I'm no longer subscribed to you for some reason.
Yeah. They've got some kind of drip algorithm that ticks people off, like gets people out of your subs.
And does it over time. Doesn't do it right away. Does it over time just to sneak you in there.
Right. Dirty.
Johnny, which YouTube channel are you live streaming at? I'm trying to
Chris, I will send you the link. This is on Doc's channel. Stand by, Chris. I will send you. I will put the link in our general chat here. Stand by, guys. General text.
Yeah. They're putting the link.
Got it. I got it.
Thank
I
you.
beat you. Stop. I beat you. I won. All right. So I've got my 2 young friends, Flat Earth Chris and Ridley. Two excellent gentlemen in media. They're going to be doing a new documentary together. They manage our Discord server, our Resistance Rising Discord server. And excited to connect with them. Let me wrap up this Getty issue real quick. So the elite having more money than they know what to do. It's usually the subsequent generations. Like I said, they don't have to worry about stabbing or enslaving their fellow man nearly as much as their progenitors do. So they just, run for politics. The Kennedys, plenty of spare time on their hands. Therefore, let's just go ahead and run for political office. As I told you in my email, I was refreshing with myself the details of David Anthony Kennedy, supposedly died of a drug overdose, and supposedly as a result of Joseph Patrick Kennedy #2 driving recklessly and causing an accident that put David's girlfriend permanently in a wheelchair and hooked David on painkillers. That unfortunately had no effect whatsoever on Joseph Patrick Kennedy #2's political career, nor did it Joseph Patrick Kennedy #3. But it's quite common, and as I was refreshing myself the information on overdosing Kennedys, I came upon Cyrus Saoirse. You pronounce that for me.
I lost.
Cyrus. That's what it looks like to me. Saoi. How you pronounce AOI is vowel. Saoirse. Cyrus looks like to me. Cyrus Royson Kennedy Hill.
I saw. Got it. Yeah.
Looks like Cyrus to me.
Cyrus
Royson Kennedy Hill, dead at 22 of an apparent overdose.
Wow. August 1st.
Now,
it's not a Feast of Loyola. It's this July 31st, right? Yes.
That's right. Is that when she died?
August 1st.
August 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Great find. Great find. I skipped over that. She was attending $61,000 a year Deerfield Academy before going on to Boston College. Dead at 22 of an apparent overdose.
Okay.
David Anthony Kennedy was a son of Bobby Sr. Cyrus Royson Kennedy Hill was a granddaughter of Bobby Sr. It's just unfortunate. This is what happens when you have too much money, which basically that is.
Yeah, the funeral was on Our Lady of Victory Church.
Yeah. So I would consider Gordon Peter Getty, and then subsequently, was it John Gilbert Getty? Signs that the Gettys are all in for Catholicism. Signs, anyway. I don't have a confirmation, but Gordon Peter being double Jesuit dipped is pretty strong. So, hey, listen, the Luciferian elite will just turn their kids over to the Jesuits without necessarily going to Mass.
Yeah.
That's still possible.
Yes.
Here's from the TMZ piece that you found. John's brother Andrew died in 2015 from meth intoxication. Mother Ann died from a heart attack this past September. Not much is known about JG. Bounced around Los Angeles, jumping from one multi-million-dollar home to the next. Listen, man, he was making good money as a musician. He is also, past tense, I would say now, pals with Gavin Newsom.
Oh, yeah, I see here, yeah. He's even highlighted pals with Gavin Newsom.
Getty family fortune estimated at $5 billion. So, when it comes time for table flipping, as it will be, Johnny's going to go full communist. Johnny's going to go full communist on families like the Gettys.
Johnny.
It'll be time, George, to roll the M1s and the T90s into the Getty compound and say, hey, all this is ours now. Go ahead, George.
Okay, speaking of tyrannical governors and who are exploiting the corona hoax, last week, Nicholas Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, I guess was nominated for an Emmy for his over 100 broadcast news update regarding the corona hoax tyranny in New York. Also, this week, Gretchen Whitmer was named Times Woman of the Year.
They are our heroes. Now nominated for an Emmy because he was giving us
correct
constant and repeated corona hoax updates. In any of those updates, did he pass wind melodiously? Because that would put him over the top for the Emmy, I would say.
Well, actually, his brother Fredo, he actually got one for one of those. But
okay, good. Well, listen, the Fredo's content can be matched to a melodious passing of wind, so that works for me.
And by the way, and Fredo, aka Chris Cuomo, he caught the corona hoax in the spring. Right? I think he might have caught it from Tom Hanks. But he was self-isolating for a couple of weeks. But even though he's feeling so badly, he got to go check on his construction. I think in Long Island somewhere.
Well, the same way. By the way, this reminds me, George, of your friend Gretchen Whitmer. Do you notice how the headlines about was it Memorial Day? When was the yacht incident?
I believe it was Memorial Day weekend.
Memorial Day weekend. Notice how the headlines
late May.
Put the onus of responsibility on the mayorette's hubby. It was the mayorette's hubby that pulled the yacht out of the port on Memorial Day when the mayorette herself was telling everyone to shelter in place. Well, if the hubby is pulling out the yacht, where was the mayorette? Why would we not assume that the mayorette was with her hubby? Unless, of course, the hubby was taking his girlfriend out. Does the hubby often take the yacht out for a stroll without the mayorette? Or was just plausible deniability by the papal puppets in the press?
Well, you know what? And forgive me for quibbling. I believe she is governor.
I stand corrected. I continue to say mayorette.
So
I was demoting her. She is the governorette of Michigan. I stand corrected. For women's suffrage.
Well, by the way, there's a follow. Speaking of Gavin Newsom, this came out a few weeks ago. He and about a dozen other people attended a posh restaurant near Napa, California.
Yes, at the French Laundry.
Yes. Well, it turns out he went there with Mark Galley. He was there with Mark Galley, who's the acting health director for California.
Living large. Living large.
So, anyhow, there were big time disciples of anti-social distancing, wearing the face tampon, all that bad stuff. Shut down your business.
George, what you don't know is that there is a special invisible barrier over the French Laundry. There is an invisible barrier. There is an international agreement with the corona hoax. The corona hoax will not attack any of the elite that enter into the French Laundry.
Yeah, so okay.
Agreement with Jupiter Macron.
Jupiter Macron? Should we bring up Jupiter Macron? Can we bring up Emmanuel Jupiter Macron, who is the current tyrant over in France?
No, he's for French safety. He's forbidding the homeschooling.
Yeah, let me give the big picture to the audience. So just to remind everyone, Chris, good to see you in the chat. Wayne, love you both. Chizal, Hopefully, you better not be writing nipples in the chat because Yay Screw Tube has you in her crosshairs. So, big picture again. Just to remind, what is he? President, Prime Minister, Superior General? I don't remember what his title is again.
I think it's king.
It's king. All right, King of France, Emmanuel Macron. Emmanuel Macron, Jesuit trained, and he was actually having sex with one of his teachers at his Jesuit high school, was his drama teacher. She just happened to be married with children at the time, but that didn't slow her down. They actually went on to marry each other, and that is his current wife. How this is not mentioned every time his face pops up is quite hilarious and quite a sign of the papal control of the press. Now, we call him Jupiter Macron because as he ascended to the throne, he swore that he would govern like Jupiter. He promised that he would govern like Jupiter, and he is. Governing like Jupiter. So as part of this agenda, Rome continues to flood Europe with Muslim immigrants. Similar to their tactic here in America, flooding America with Hispanic Roman Catholic immigrants, encouraging both major groups not to assimilate. Encouraging both groups not to assimilate, to stick out as much as possible. So the oath-breaking insurgents who run Europe for Rome have been doing this for quite some time now. This has created large ghettos of third world Muslim immigrants. And because they're not assimilating, because they're being encouraged not to assimilate, they stick out. They piss off the native born. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. After they stick out long enough, the high traitors in government, so-called intelligence, and so-called law enforcement go on to conduct false flags pretending to be Muslims. Like 7/7, Charlie Hebdo, on and on. Now, in response, Jupiter Macron says he is going to outlaw homeschooling. He's going to outlaw homeschooling in France. I guess he has the authority to do that all by himself, being that he is Emperor Jupiter. Jupiter Macron, in the coming year, is going to outlaw homeschooling to crack down on those terrorist Muslims.
Yes, protect children from religion.
Protect children from their parents.
Yeah.
He's going to protect children from their parents, put them all in schools where they'll get inoculated, vaccinated, and indoctrinated with sex and nothing that will help them later on in life.
Yeah.
So let's hear it for Emperor Jupiter.
Let's see. Yeah, so
Okay.
the law will be in effect 2021. Children aged 3 to 16. And then parents.
God forbid.
Parents.
All right, so what did we do last show? What did we do last show to our beloved flying monkeys in France? Start planning now. Start planning now. What is your broken arrow plan? What is your broken arrow plan? You homeschool your children, and the government is now going to pull by force your children out of your home and put them into a public cesspool they call a school. You absolutely need a broken arrow plan that includes leaving France. Now wow. I mean, who has the ability to move?
If you are
Who has the ability to move?
Paul Getty with mansions around, right?
The Getty family? Yeah, anyone in the Getty family can move at any time. I wish they would move to Mars.
Yeah.
But your plans should include legal action all the way through.
But
Go ahead, Doc.
at least in Europe, they made it easy. Like if you have a French passport, you can live in many different countries, right? So in Europe,
True. Yeah. Yes.
that's,
Yes. So thanks to the new Holy Roman Empire that was promoted by Jesuit priest Joseph Ratzinger, who created the European unification movement as well as the Bilderbergs, you now have the ability to jump across borders relatively easily. But I'm telling you, I encourage our flying monkeys, our beloved flying monkeys in France, do not give your children to the state at all costs. Do not give your children to the state at all costs. Have a multi-layered plan. A multi-layered plan to include huge sacrifices in order to leave France. But let that be your broken arrow plan. Don't go right to that. Have incremental plans. As we say in the military, have your 25-meter target, your 50-meter target, your 300-meter target, and your 500-meter target. A multi-tiered plan. And if all of that fails, do not give your children over to the state. So once again, we have my dear friends Ridley, Colonel Mitch Potter, Flat Earth Chris. You guys can chime in anytime that you want.
I had a couple of questions for you, Johnny.
Go ahead,
this is regarding the history of the
you
Jesuits.
said Johnny, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I said
Yeah.
Johnny. Yeah, I did.
Mhm. Okay, good. Okay, go ahead.
So I had a couple of questions of the history of the Templars and the Jesuits. This is a little off topic, but I'm super interested. So there's three main groups of people that were involved. It was the Knights Templar, it was the Teutonic Knights, and the Knights Hospitaller that turned into the Knights of Malta. So whatever happened to the Teutonic Knights? What did they turn into? Are they gone, or did they get absorbed?
I have no visibility on this right now. However, I can make educated guesses based on what I already know. I would imagine there is an order of the Teutonic Knights that is still bestowed upon people. Either the German government and or the Roman Catholic Church probably do that.
Gotcha.
Knighthoods in general, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, Knights of the Teutonic Order, I'm sure still exist, so on and so forth. The purpose of all knighthoods is to create a Praetorian class to insulate the high baby-eating Luciferian elite from the masses. A loyal Praetorian class. The purpose is feudalism. The purpose is to maintain feudalism. And you blow smoke and sunshine up the asses of people placed in positions of power, police chiefs, generals, so on and so forth. Praetorians, those who wield coercive force for Rome and for Rome's governmental proxies. You blow smoke and sunshine up their ass about what a great job they're doing by bestowing upon them a knighthood. It's hilarious that this goes on. This is a big part of the Arthur myth being carried on and on and on and on. one of the latest ridiculous sexually deviant Transformer movies, starring Roman Catholic Marky Mark.
Was the last night, right?
The Last Night. All about this stupidity. All about this stupidity. Hellboy. Hellboy,
The new one or the
new one, the new Hellboy, reveled in this, the Arthurian stupidity. Hellboy being one of the most overtly demonic and simultaneously Catholic heroes for us.
Johnny.
Go ahead, George.
Yeah, I wish Zach Hubbard could join us because I just heard on the radio British actor Geoffrey Palmer died actually on November the 5th, so it was a few weeks ago. Now, for those of you who don't know, he's probably best known for his appearances on Fawlty Towers, Doctor Who, Blackadder, and he was in at least one of the James Bond films. Well, he died at the age of 93 on November the 5th. He was an OBE, Order of the British Empire. And, okay, when I heard that, when I looked at the day he died on Guy Fawkes Day, Guido Fawkes Day, that struck me as suspicious. Yes, I realize people do die, and he was 93. So I just wonder if there was any sort of...
I can't tell you in relation to the numerology, the gematria, but we'll ask Zach when we see him again. Pardon me. Colonel, you're unmuted. You prepping to jump in? Check test. I want to get Colonel's input. Yeah, still the usual, pardon my language, fuckery involved with your audio. Check test.
Would you mind if I ask another question? Or?
Go ahead, Chris. I don't know did that help you in any way?
A little bit. I don't know.
So listen, okay. Let me finish answering your question as the Colonel fixes his audio and you prep for another question. Where did they go? They are bit players providing plausible deniability right now. The Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, they're all still controlled by the Jesuits, but they provide some level of insulation for the Jesuits when the Jesuits don't necessarily want to be directly involved. They absolutely are still in roles today, and we have a quote about the Knights of Columbus: you can't even get into dog catcher or political office unless you're given the sign of the cross by the Knights of Columbus, etc., etc. Colonel, I got the green light from your audio. You in yet?
I see it. Can you hear me?
I got you. You're Lima Charlie.
Okay. Hey, so immediately on George, 93 is a sacred number of Thelema, OTO. So if he died at 93, that could be an indication there. November 11th, obviously, November 5th, Guy Fawkes Day, 11/5/55. 55 is Goddess Virgin Mary worship. There is probably significance. Maybe he also died on that day. Those are the kind of things we're not going to know until they open all the books. I would totally concur, with what you said about the Templars. Why is it necessary that they went anywhere? They just, like the Jesuits, blown cover is cover. Could have been one of the first. Your historical sources are better, though, in terms of those organizations going away and going underground. Why? Because technology couldn't hide them as well as it can now. Now technology can, Jesuits, Templars, Masons, priests, they can move seamlessly among all different types of people now because of technology. It makes it so much easier. But back then, if you're a Templar and you have a bunch of lands or money, you would have to have some kind of a seal or some kind of a secret code. And presumptively, those things were shut down by the papacy when they were put underground. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they were just handed over. Like the assets of the Templars were handed over to the St. John Hospitallers, and maybe they just became part of the Hospitallers. So, I think it's going to be one of those questions that will be very difficult to ever answer.
Excellent points, Colonel. Excellent points. That they had to go underground prior to the digital age. Now they can come back to life and provide plausible deniability. Guys, we've seen warfare. We've seen what is the word internecine warfare of the hostile takeover by the Jesuits of these orders, their sister orders, these knighthoods. We were wondering if this the condom flap with the Knights of Malta.
Yeah, Michael Fasting or the
Uncle Fester. The British, the British provided multiple. What's the top knight? The superior, whatever the hell they call the top knight.
The Grand Poobah.
Yeah, the Grand Poobah.
Grand Poobah, yeah.
Uncle Fester, the Grand Poobah. The British provided multiple Grand Poobahs recently to the Knights of Malta, showing as a show of force just how overwhelmingly successful Rome's retaking of Britain has been. The same comes to my mind with, hang on, George, the same comes to my mind with Peter Hans Kolvenbach being superior general as a victory lap over Protestant Netherlands, him being Dutch. Go on.
Okay.
Let Doc go first, George, and then you can go. Go ahead, Doc.
I was just mentioning the current one is a Portuguese. The current.
We got that covered.
Yeah.
We got that covered.
Yes.
We got you, Doc. All right, George, go ahead, brother.
Well, I thought Souza was Venezuelan. Arturo Souza.
No, Knights of Malta versus the Jesuits, George.
Black robe.
Yeah.
George, Knights of Malta versus the Jesuits.
A big one. Okay, so here's a little factoid about Jeffrey Palmer. As I said, he died this year, November the 5th, at the age of 93. I don't recall his birthday off the top of my head. No, he was. Now, I know you a bit of a fan of Blackadder with Rowan Atkinson. Well, Palmer actually had a cameo in the fourth iteration, Blackadder Goes Forth, where he portrayed Sir Douglas Haig.
Okay, you can keep hitting these factoids. He's relatively obscure. I do know who you're talking about, but he's kind of obscure. So I'll let you dump your factoids and then we'll move on.
Well, in the fourth and final iteration of Blackadder, Blackadder Goes Forth, it's set during World War One, aka the initial stage of the Second 30 Years' War, and Blackadder and his entourage, they're British soldiers. Well, anyhow, in the final episode, Blackadder, especially in this version, he's always engaging in these schemes to try to get out of combat because he has this aversion to being mowed down by German machine guns or dying of a gas attack. And anyhow, one of his brilliant ideas is to feign being crazy. So he decides to pull a favor. Now, granted, Blackadder is a fictional character. Edmund Blackadder is a fictional character. So he decides to phone Haig because he saved his life once in some sort of colonial battle in Africa somewhere, about 20 years earlier. So he said, "Hey, Sir Douglas, would you mind helping me get out of this scrape?" And he said, "Well, what you should do is just put a pair of underpants on and put a couple of pencils up your nose. That should work." And it's something, but it doesn't mature. Well, it doesn't mature. So anyhow, I bring this up because he Palmer betrayed one of the most vicious monsters in the 20th century, who's probably has been disappeared from the history book. He was responsible for basically the murder of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of British and Commonwealth forces in Europe.
George, I love what you've done with that. I'm glad that I patiently let you start with an obscure actor and move on. I love what you've done with that. Let's not forget. Folks. What was that? What was that French butcher's full name? Ferdinand was.
Ferdinand. Well, it depends on how you. It's Foch if it's French, or Folk if it's German.
Yeah. So the Supreme Allied Commander. I can't blame Doc on that one. That was George.
No, yeah.
George
the Supreme Allied Commander of World War I, responsible with sending thousands upon thousands of young men into suicide by machine gun. A Jesuit-trained Frenchman who should have been hung for supposed incompetence. An absolute butcher. Rewritten by the Roman historians as, quote, aggressive. Aggressive is what you call a general who orders thousands upon thousands of soldiers to commit murder by machine gun. Go ahead.
Also, his brother, German Fock, became a Jesuit priest.
There's the proof. There's the proof.
The Wikipedia says, which may have hindered Fock's rise in the French army since the
Yes. Slowed him down.
They were anti-clerical.
Slowed him down from becoming the Supreme Allied Commander in World War I. Absolutely hindered him. Hindered him like a fucking hot air balloon.
Just like it hindered Alexander Haig's career.
You bet. And his brother, Francis.
John, I have a question about the Jesuits and the history. So, how did the Jesuits get in control of the Knights of Malta? The Knights of Malta were created.
Are you pulling it, George? I don't need another George here. You can't do a segue into World War I or anything like that. You gotta yank us and do a George. All right. He's a burning desire to see what happened to the knighthood. They're around you. First of all, not to bust your chops when I'm busting your chops. They're around you. Cops, generals, the Freemasonry. Freemasonry is the ongoing knighthood. Control of the cops. Knights of Columbus do this with the cops. Their blue masses do this with the cops. Finish your follow-on question, young man.
So, you told me that the Jesuits were created in the 1300s, which is a weird coincidence because the Templars were killed in 1307, right?
Well, no. Now let me say that the Jesuits have, to my knowledge, an ongoing tradition of extreme dedication to what I call the Devil's Matrix. Now, the current iteration of how we Christians would say Satan, Lucifer, the adversary, how does this brilliant interdimensional consciousness control? He does so mainly through the city-state of Rome. No, entirely through. He does it entirely through the city-state of Rome. The tradition of Rome's special forces goes way back to the first bloody, needless warfare amongst men.
Praetorian Guard.
Go ahead, Carl.
Praetorian Guard.
Right. Generals and emperors have always needed an elite to surround themselves with because they've been monsters who create a lot of enemies. Therefore, they need the best of the best of the best. As my brother from another mother, Will Smith, would say, to protect them from all of the innocent survivors whom they have stepped on to get to where they're at. So this tradition is as timeless as the needless warfare tradition. The assassins are part of this tradition. The Templars fought the assassins, then joined hands with them. The Jesuits carry on the tradition. Now, I know that my son Nicholas might argue with just how much the Jesuits took over from the Templars, but look, that absolutely is a continuity of knowledge, of secret knowledge. There is absolutely a continuity of secret knowledge that's going on there.
Did you say that the assassins were fighting with the Templars?
Yes.
The assassins were Muslims, right?
Yes.
But wasn't Islam created by the Catholic Church?
Step back. Let's just say that we have strong evidence that the Vatican was integral in the manipulation of Islam. If that is true, that does not mean that the Vatican has a direct line of communication to all Islamic leadership. Just because the Vatican manipulated Islam, maybe enabled Islam into existence, and read my book, Secret History, for more details.
Through Muhammad's wife, right? She has a Catholic. She had a Catholic.
Yeah, Khadija.
Khadija, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I
was a Catholic nun.
jump in?
Sure.
Yeah, the theory is that Islam was created to destroy Christianity, which was moving through North Africa and Arabia and towards the Far East at that time. When was it? 530 BC. So Islam was created as a to essentially split that burgeoning new religion in that part of the world. Well, it worked so well that they became stronger than the people who created them. It was a Prometheus Unbound circumstance where Frankenstein essentially took over and spread all the way through Europe, and the genie was out of the bottle. The papacy then had to find its way back into Islam, which it did over hundreds of years through the Ottoman Turks and through several of the courts process there. Several
Freemasonry.
Through Freemasonry, also through commerce, through the Venetians, who had extensive commerce with all the Ottoman Turks. And they were able to undermine that power over a long, as well as the Crusades as well, over a long period of time. It took them a long period of time to get that back under control. So the fact that they created it didn't mean they have control throughout. It served the purpose. It served the purpose of destroying Christianity in Africa and the Far East, and the Middle East and parts of the Far East. But then it became a problem for Europe.
Brilliant summary, Colonel. Brilliant summary.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, if I may chime in, the Prophet Muhammad, his dates I believe were 570 to 632 AD, and Islam came into creation existence around 610. So you're talking about 1400 years ago, early 7th century. Well, after the Prophet Muhammad's death in 632, there was a schism in Islam as to who should take over. One faction were his sons. They thought they should be in charge. Another faction were his generals. Well, so this led to major and a great deal of bloodshed. So the sons, their faction became known as the Shia. The other faction became the Sunni. Now, to this day, the Sunnis are the majority. They make somewhere like 80-90%, and the Shia make up the majority of the rest. Now, so there's always, however, there's enmity. They can't stand each other. It's somewhat analogous to either Catholic Protestant or, say, Catholic Eastern Orthodox. So a major agenda for Rome is to completely subjugate Islam, and they want to make them all Sunnis. Therefore, the Shia are expendable. So for about the last 20 years or so, they want to for the most part, they want to use the U.S. military to extirpate the Shias or get them to become Sunnis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I would argue that like, you don't think it could have been deliberate, because the reason one of the main differences between the Shias and the Sunnis is that the Shias actually have a different prophecy than the Sunnis, right? And actually, I would argue that if this is a connection or not. It's very interesting that the Daniel 8 prophecy of Persia attacking the king of the north, which is probably a Sunni Muslim country like Turkey, is connected with that because the Shias have a war with it.
Pause. I love that. Let's pause right there, not to cut you off, not to step on you. And let me defer to my beloved friend, Professor Walter Veit. You absolutely have to, and I'm pretty sure I've sent you this, young man, his King of the North series, part 1 and part 2, brilliantly connects the King of the North to Rome. To Rome. Now think of this. Imagine a Muslim stronghold, whether Iran fits to this very day, Iran fits as modern Persia. Imagine a Muslim stronghold attacking Rome. This is one of the main reasons why I'm so careful in treating this topic. There are too many Christians that are reckless in dealing with Islam. Islam, no less so Judaism. Maybe I'm a little rough on Judaism because there are too many patsies in prominent positions that appear to be very happy to kiss the ring. But the fact is that they're all being used. And imagine the outrage amongst those different groups as they are brought into the knowledge of how Rome has used them. It brings up pictures of the beast turning upon the harlot, ripping her to shreds, and burning her with fire.
But I'll say the Jesuits still have a card upon their sleeve with the Fatima, right? The Our Lady of Fatima.
Hey, the Jesuits have a card up the sleeve over Adventists.
Mm-hmm.
The Jesuits have a solid control over Adventists, and Adventists should know better. But that doesn't change what can happen in the near future. Go ahead, Colonel.
That's true.
I was just going to jump in. Jerusalem being the #1 unification point for all religions, and that obviously it's going to have a role to play. I think a deceptive role. I don't think it's a biblical role in the future, but
Bingo.
So the point being that Rome and Islam and Judaism can all come together over the issue of the Temple Mount. Freemasons can come together for that because they rule Solomon's. They worship Solomon's temple.
Oh, so. I constantly play with my Freemasonic friends and admirers and encourage them to fall upon their swords by helping us. I know that there are some awake Freemasons that would love for the opportunity to bite the hand that controls them. I know they're out there. I know they're listening right now. Go ahead.
The other was Fatima's is as he just said, it's a unification. Islam is also goddess worship, just like Roman Catholicism. Yes. They're almost the exact same religion. That's why that the one that preceded it is the one that created it.
Well, there are tremendous similarities, and honestly, we could push that harder, but I really don't desire to do that. There are many similarities.
Yeah, spiritually, no. I'm not saying
of Muhammad's, and yet Muhammad's retiring to a cave, we must remember, predates Loyola. So there's if there is a connection, it goes deeper than just who are the Jesuits. So
and I think that goes back maybe even before ancient Greece, because you had the allegory of Plato's cave, right? Where everyone is in the cave until they come out and understand.
What is the cave discourse? What is the cave discourse? It's about reality.
Right.
If we shelter you up, if we force you to shelter in place in a cave, you go stir crazy, you lose touch with reality. What's more real, the flower in my hand or the memory of the flower in my mind? Bullshit.
Yeah.
It's a matter of mind control. It's a method of mind control. Ignatian spirituality is a method of mind control. And it runs through this.
Do you think that the assassins could have been in control of the Muslim countries at the time?
No, they were just a very powerful force. A very powerful force, a secretive force that specialized in murder. And a way to conduct murder and not get caught. And these techniques run through and were given through the Jesuits to the CIA to this very day. Continue to utilize these techniques and tactics through to today. Powerful force. I would say, in my estimation, now granted, I am not an expert, and based upon the information that I have to this day, without looking any further, I would say the assassins were very powerful, but nothing compared to the Templars. The Templars had the wealth of nations, which is why Philippe le Bel, his coup against both the Vatican and the Templars is just amazing. I don't know of any other time in history, where any sovereign subverted the power of Rome. Not even Cromwell. Cromwell was only able to free his own country for a short period of time before the Jesuits murdered him.
And he was killed shortly thereafter.
Yeah, murdered him. The Jesuits murdered him by his own doctor, who was a closet.
Not Cromwell, but I was thinking of King Philip.
Okay, sure, yeah, sure.
What is
Philippe le Bel. Yeah, Philippe le Bel was murdered. Are you saying Philippe le Bel? I did not. Was Philippe le Bel murdered?
He died shortly thereafter. Like 2 years, 3 years after. He suppressed the on a very. I don't have it in front of me, but I could send it to you. Very suspicious.
November 29, 2 days
On
from now.
November. Yes. Good
What
for
is
you.
Age
What is
46.
the connection?
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I don't want to interrupt. You can go first.
Go ahead, Colonel. Finish your thought.
I was just saying I believe he was age 46 when he was killed.
Excellent. Well, he was able to relocate the Vatican and got away with that. Kept the Vatican in France, in Avignon.
He had a cerebral stroke during a hunt. Died.
Oh, is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
A stroke. I hate when that happens. Getting stroke.
That's how they check out Lenin, Vladimir Lenin, Ilyanov.
Also died of a stroke, George, you're saying?
Yes. So, but he died under completely different circumstances. He was a useful idiot for the Jesuits, and so once he served his purpose, they had no more need for him.
Excellent, George. Good connection.
Okay.
Chris, are you going to pull another George and yank us into a new direction, or are you going to stay with this? Talk to me. What are you going to do?
Well, it was connection with the Templars. Back to the Templars, because I do want to know the connection between the Templars and the Jesuits and the Priory of Sion, because I've heard claims that the Jesuits absorbed the Priory of Sion.
I would have to defer to my son, the Ngudian, on that one. I'm sure he's an expert on the Priory of Sion.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, hello, Chris. Hello, Doc. Hello, Colonel. And hello, Johnny, if I didn't say so earlier. And happy Black Friday.
What's up, George?
Yes, thank you, George, for going through and saying hello to everyone and interrupting. You missed Ridley. Say hello to Ridley, too.
Oh, hello, Ridley.
Hi, George.
All right. Now that we got that over with. Next topic.
Okay, can I mention something?
Does George have a permission to pull a George? Yes, George, you have permission to pull a George.
Okay, something we've talked about on more than one occasion is Event 201, which took place just over a year ago on October the 18th of last year, which basically was when the Jesuits and their puppets got together to work out the last minute details for this medical false flag that's commonly called coronavirus or COVID-19, or as I prefer to call it, COVID 1984. Well, as I said, they're just working out the last minute details. This is something that they've been working on for decades, generations, perhaps going back to the Spanish flu of roughly 100 years ago. Well, there was a financial equivalent of that. I've not been on all your broadcasts, but have you discussed Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum?
I have not. I have not yet. So if you've got Jesuit breadcrumbs on him, please Schwab away.
Well, he went to it was a secular school which used to be run by the Jesuits in France, a university of, or to Switzerland, a university of Freiburg. Well, there's a French pronunciation and a German pronunciation. It used to be run by the Jesuits, but as I said, it's now a secular school.
George, can I step on you for just a second and highlight what a great find? They have done this repeatedly with some key figures, particularly across Europe. There's many examples. Go into them if you want. Otherwise, I just want to highlight your find. If you look, I'm sure Vatipedia shows you nothing about the Schwabis' education. And yet, when the Jesuits found a school, do you think they just pack up and leave when the school goes public? No. Keep going, George. Good job.
Okay, so Schwab, for what it's worth, was born in 1938. He founded this entity called the World Economic Forum in 1971 at the age of 33. I repeat, at the age of 33. And so they're basically a business think tank. They're like, you could say the Council of Foreign Relations or the Trilateral Commission, but they deal with money, banking, the International Monetary Fund, things like that. So in order to pull off this epic machination called Covert 1984, as I said, it takes a long time to work out the details. You had to, in order to blow up the building, I'm not a demolitions expert by any stretch of imagination, but you had to do all sorts of prep work. You had to had to make sure that nobody's in there. You had to lay out the wires and the explosives and make sure it falls in the right direction, all that sort of stuff. Well, and I'm just using that as an analogy. Well, they have been wiring this building for a long time, generations, decades. And there's all sorts of attending parts. You had to deal with the press, with banks, with supermarkets, with governments at all different levels, federal, state, local in the United States, or whatever the foreign equivalents are. And you had to make sure you have enough people on board. Your mayors, your governors, your health officials, and so forth, to make sure they'll be in unison. And so the World Economic Forum, as I said, dealt with the money bags. So what is the upshot? Well, something that Schwab has advocated for years is the Great Reset, which is somewhat analogous to the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Well, here in the year 2020 and almost 2021, we need to get rid of what used to be normal and acceptable. We need to obliterate national borders. We need to obliterate different economies. We need to eliminate the middle class and small businesses. That was a major impetus for shutting down businesses throughout the world. Your what we call mom and pop places. So, in the name of safety, because everybody knows that if you go into a Costco or Walmart, the corona hoax won't bother you there. However, if you go to an independently owned business like a barber shop or a restaurant or whatever, it's doubly active there. Also, cash and coins are intrinsically dirty and dangerous. However, credit cards and debit cards are perfectly safe.
I just type on Google Klaus Schwab Catholic, and then the first find is a letter from Jorge to him, a message from the Holy Father to the executive chairman of the World Economic Forum from 2018. So yeah, the theme is creating a shared future in a fractured world.
Can I jump into that very small topic George just unleashed on us, which is pretty much the whole world, what we're going through right now? First of all, World Economic Forum, no national buy-in. It is just a bunch of billionaires who came together. This is the Davos Summit, and they meet every year because they want to. They can pay for it. And then they invite government officials. And essentially, the government officials take from them concepts that they give them at that forum. And because they have this glow from being around all these billionaires for a while, they take them back to their countries and try to implement them. So anyone who hears World Economic Forum initially should say, who are these people? Is it the United Nations? No, it's just it's essentially Dr. Evil meeting and having a meeting about how they're going to rule the world for the next 1,000 years. Second point I would make to what this agenda is, obviously we can see it. It's happening every day. People like Schwab are now popping up and saying things that are completely and utterly disgusting to our sense of individual self, that we have to somehow bend over and become part of this collective. And I think what you're seeing forming are two large, and I talked about it last, so I'm not going to go into it too much more, but you're seeing two large wings forming. You got your left wing and your right wing. And it's forming under a lot of different formats. Macron, for example, is getting rid of homeschooling in France. Well, Portugal just came out and said that they have questions over the PCR test. I don't know if you saw that. The legislature passed something about questioning the PCR test. So here's the right wing, here's the left wing. And you're starting to see all these issues break down, left, right, left, right. And that is a classic Jesuit formation, where they're setting up this dialectic to slam against each other and figure out what happens. Just one final thing, I think we've got two concepts to think about here spiritually. One is the Egyptian spirituality, which is the phoenix rising out of the ashes. Jorge, Pope Frank, as I like to call him, just comes and tells Schwab, we need to take all of these broken societies and bring them together. Well, that is a phoenix rising out of the ashes. And then the second thing to think about are the feet in Daniel's prophecy, the iron and the clay, and what will happen, as from a Christian perspective, at this stage in history, when the iron and the clay represents a splitting up of peoples and societies in such that it's probably unmanageable at that stage.
Oh, I love that. I'm sorry, Colonel. I wanted to jump in. I had to step away from the mic. The Jesuits have been doing a miraculous job. I don't know if the miraculous is the right word. A satanic job, a satanically successful job of erasing themselves and the Vatican from our consciousness. They've done a fantastic job of erasing themselves from Christian eschatology. It is shocking. It is satanic how, with lockstep, so-called Protestant evangelical fundamentalist Christian pastors teach Jesuit heresy. Shocking. They have completely erased themselves. One of the methods they have done so is with blowing up the role and or the concept of interdimensional genetic tampering, so that when you examine Nebuchadnezzar's dream and you look at the feet of iron mixed with miry clay, you are tempted to accept the interpretation that this is some sort of satanic army of some kind. Because there's a passage in Daniel that talks about mixing with the seed of men and not cleaving one to another. I am much more open now to alternate interpretations to include what you just said, Colonel. That there could be an interpretation that includes those whom we Christians would call saved and those whom we Christians would call not saved. Because from a Christian perspective, there are fundamental differences, perhaps even physiological differences. I mean, you can make a case for that. Christians becoming regenerated, reborn, etc. So I just wanted to highlight and accent what you had said, and also to highlight and accent what George was saying, how much there are Catholics who are calling the Schwabi the new George Soros. He's going to usher in. I can't believe. I thank my beloved friend Professor Walter White for forcing me to listen to some of Vigano's speech because I don't have the patience for it. And apparently Vigano says that this is Carlo Maria Vigano, the cardinal whose brother is a Jesuit priest, claims that if Biden gets in office, this will be the interpretation of the
restrainer. Yeah.
Oh God.
The false interpretation. Donald Trump was the restrainer of is it 1 Thessalonians 5?
Mm-hmm.
What absolute stupid. What absolute stupid. And yet, so this is the Catholic belief. So the restrainer will leave. The great restrainer. First of all, as we've remarked before, it is counterintuitive. It's intuitive to think, okay, restrainer holding back Antichrist bad, restrainer therefore must be good. We've talked about this before. The reality is that both the Antichrist and the restrainer are bad. I love the Adventist interpretation of this, that the restrainer is military Rome. Military Rome had to go away to usher in religious Rome. I love that. I think that's spot on.
Mm-hmm. I think that was also the Reformers' eschatology as well.
Excellent.
That so it's not new to E.G. White or anyone. I think they just adopted that from a prior eschatology. And there's actually, I believe, some archaeological evidence to that effect in the early Christian writings. But one other thing, just about the miry clay, I guess my point was, and this goes to maybe Zbigniew Brzezinski saying, it's easier, the people are awake. It's easier to kill 1 million now than to control them. Okay, so what options do our controllers have if they can't really control us? And I think, going forward, this concept of a great reset, we've talked a lot about the Joker agenda. I sent you something just now, I think about an hour ago, Johnny, on the tarot card, the Jester, and the idea that the Jester is walking off a cliff. And, whether we are at that stage where they realize that they can't really do this from a pure governmental standpoint, so they have to throw left against right into almost what's breaking into a global civil war, populist versus, government control, however you want to define it, Trump versus Biden, populist versus Macron, however you want to define that. We've reached this point perhaps where they realize Zbigniew Brzezinski's prediction, which is that they have to do something to get this back. It's a dire prediction. I don't know that it comes true. I'm just saying, maybe that's the stage where we are, and I start to see, very big. Well, we all see it. Very big left and right, for lack of a better term, armies getting built for this crusade against each other. And I think the positioning we're seeing of the Catholic Church is to try to remain above the fray. But even still, Johnny, you've mentioned before that Francis may be a fall guy. there may be a right wing sitting in the and by design, but there may be maybe even the Jesuit order at this point is ready to step back and let the papacy rule the world. I don't know, but we're getting to that. It seems like we're getting to that culmination point. However, go ahead.
I'm just going to agree with you. They themselves have repeatedly painted Francis. We've been asking this question since 2013. When was his coronation? Doc, you and I were asking this, bouncing this question back and forth since
2013.
What they don't need. Oh, here he is, Hawkeye. Love you. So glad to see you. Hawkeye is somebody else that was there when we were talking about this since 2013. Were we not? They don't need a Jesuit white pope. Why would they do that? Unless they really did need the leadership, the boost in leadership. I got a little bit of an echo from you, Hawk. But definitely want your input. We've been thinking that Francis is a fall guy from the beginning. Unless, of course, there are leadership needs that we're not privy to, that at one point they had 4 Jesuits in power. 2 Jesuit popes, two blacks. Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, two white popes and 2 black popes, right?
2 white popes and 2 black popes. At one point, they had 4 popes altogether. 2 Jesuit black popes. Go ahead, Hawkeye.
Adolfo Nicholas died this May 20th. But let's go back to Francis. Remember, 2005, April 19th. How's my audio?
It's a little light. It's a little low. If you can boost it, get close to the microphone. Keep going.
Okay. All right, guys. I'll try and do this while I'm talking. So then, remember Benedict. Okay, Benedict's papacy began April 19th. Okay, so April 19th, we have the date of the first Superior General, Ignatius Loyola, 1541. So April 19th is very significant. So Ratzinger. So Ratzinger becomes Pope Benedict April 19th, 2005. He gives his announcement for retiring from the papacy or stepping down on February 11th, 2013. Remember, February 11th is also another significant date because we have the anniversary of the Lateran Treaty in 1929. And also from the Adventist mindset that the head wound that was delivered under Napoleon in 1798, 1799, when was it Clement the? I will apologize for getting this wrong, but February 20th, I believe, of 1798, under Napoleon. Whichever pope it was, sorry, you can look it up, was arrested, and then he died in exile in 1799, August 29th, 1799, another significant date. But you have, so that we believe the head wound was delivered then, when the papacy, after the suppression of the Jesuit order in 1773, July 21st. And then you have the papacy regaining its temporal power in 1929, February 11th, under the Lateran Treaty. And there's another date attached to it. I think it's June 7th, possibly, of that same year, 1929. So back to 2013. Ratzinger.
I can give you real quick. I can give you these popes.
Sure.
Clement number 13 attempted to suppress the Jesuits and died. Clement 14 suppressed the Jesuits. It was, let's see here.
I think Clement is the one that decomposed.
Pius number 6 was imprisoned. Pius number 6 was imprisoned by Napoleon. Pius number 7 wrote in 1814, restored the society by writing Dominus ac Redemptor, bringing the Jesuits back to life. Does that help?
Yeah, and that was a significant date to August. It was either August 14th or 15th, so right around the Assumption of Mary date, when they were brought back in 1814. But back to 2013, when Benedict gave his resignation, was February 11th, and then he officially stepped away on February 28th. And then we have later that year, the papal conclave that took place over March 11th and 12th. so 311, 312, and then on 313, Francis ascended to the first Jesuit Pope ascended to the white papacy. Does that make sense? Or that make
One thing to add there: February 11th is the 42nd day of the year. If you recall, last show with Zach. If you recall the show with Zach, 42 that means Jesuit. It equals Jesuit in ordinal numerology or standard numerology. Also, 42 is there are several other significances to 42. He mentioned it on that show, but February 11th is 42nd day of the year.
Well done, Colonel.
Yeah. So, also to remember that Ratzinger was at the Second Vatican Council. He was one of the biggest.
He helped write it.
Yeah.
He was the prefect for the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith. He was in charge of the Inquisition, and he stood side by side with Jesuit Karl Rahner, and were foundational in putting together Vatican II, which Carlo Maria Vigano says is the cause of all things evil within Rome. If they could just go back prior to Vatican II, everything would be daffodils and lollipops again.
So can we? Oh, go ahead, Doc. Sorry.
I'll just say his brother was accused of pedophilia, right? Well, he was a lead.
His brother liked the choir boys. His brother spent a little too much time up in the choir with the boys.
Yeah.
So can we envision a scenario where
Hawkeye's trying to jump in? Go ahead, Colonel, and then when your Colonel's done, then Hawkeye jump in.
1 minute. Can we envision a scenario where Jorge is taken out and Ratzinger's restored, and this becomes the great rise of the Church Militant, where now we throw out the Second Vatican Council and it's Catholic or not, that kind of thing. Can we envision that scenario?
It could. That is a possible scenario. They better move fast because Ratzinger,
right? He's about to die. Right.
Not that much. It would be the mummy pope is what it would be. Hawkeye, go ahead.
I think it as well. It came up. We mentioned a couple of times this year. Remember, so February 11th, 2020, the World Health Organization, so the WHO. Remember, founded in 1948 on Xavier's birthday, April 7th, renamed the coronavirus COVID-19 on February 11th this year. So gave it a new identity this year on February 11th as well. So another connection to the date.
Go ahead, Doc.
I'll just say they could bring a young pope like Pius XIII, like in the show.
Good. Yes, a young, good-looking pope. Yeah, absolutely. To really, we get that terrible Francis out, and we bring in a real charismatic.
Yeah, when they come back to tradition. Yeah.
Yes, bring us back to tradition. Absolutely.
Have you guys seen the Netflix show Two Popes?
I have heard lots of good things about it. I haven't forced myself to sit in front of it. Go ahead, Chris. What's your feedback?
I have no information on it. I was wondering if you guys watched it, see if they were telling us any predictive programming or anything in it.
I've not seen it, but I want to mention the point. It's interesting.
Well, I've not seen it.
Well, you could shut up and let Hawkeye finish. You could shut up and let Hawkeye finish and then jump in. You stepped on him. I know you didn't mean to. Hang on just 1 second, George. Let Hawkeye finish and then you go, okay? Hold on.
So the concept of the two popes, which you bringing up, actually, remember, even 4 popes, 3 popes. Now there's the 3. But what would it be? Consolidating the idea that it's the previous white pope and the current white pope, rather than having and giving them a white and a black color, rather than having Arturo Sosa, and at the time when it came out, Adolfo Nicolas, then off in the peripheral. I think it just it took away from that narrative, because again, who really knows and discusses the role of the Black Pope or the Black Papacy, Jesuit order, and so on, and the fact that this current Pope is a Jesuit, the first one.
And serendipity, the Two Popes was released, November 27, 2019, exactly 1 year from today.
Well done, Doc. Okay, George, you can jump in now.
Okay. a couple of things. It stars the film in question stars Sir Anthony Hopkins, who is a Roman Catholic, and Jonathan Pryce. I don't know what religious affiliation he is. I have not seen it. However, I've seen excerpts. And there's a scene in the film where they're talking about the Beatles. I'm not sure the context in which they're doing this, but I believe one of them asked, "So, what do you think of the Beatles?" "Oh, I love them. They're groovy," or something along those lines. So, why would they be bringing up this band that was popular in the 1960s? Could it have something to do with the fact that they were a Roman creation?
Yeah, George, you've done great work on this. It's a pretty eye-opening topic. All of the Beatles hype across generations of time, how much of it was actually manufactured. It's a very it's a worthwhile topic. I've said this before. This idea of whether or not Paul McCartney was replaced. If we accept the spontaneous rise of the group, if we accept everything that we're told as far as the popularity, then the idea that early on the lead singer died and was replaced with a body double is ridiculous. It's patently absurd. However, if the Beatles was some sort of intelligence and or Jesuit experiment where many of this was pre-planned, where they had an idea where they were going to take the group and what they were going to use the group for, then a replacement of one of the group members by a body double suddenly is plausible and makes sense. Mm-hmm. And only in that paradigm does it do so.
Just jump in on that. How many Lee Harvey Oswalds were there? And people,
oh, well done. You bet.
People always ask me, well, how is that possible? Is it cloning? What are you talking about? You're crazy. You don't know about cloning. And I say, well, do you think there are government databases with literally millions of faces that they could scan and find out about and understand and do aging analysis or any of that kind of stuff? They have and those databases, unfortunately, are mostly in the military. And now, actually, they're more all of us, but back in maybe the 50s, 60s, depending on what level of control, maybe it were school databases, you could find any number of people who look like Paul McCartney and try to put them in.
Yeah, we know that the Jesuits were in control of the Beatles by the producer, right? Sir George Martin attended Jesuits
Their first
college.
Good job, Doc. The original, the fifth Beatle, Jesuit educated. And was he Catholic also, Doc?
Don't know.
We know he was Jesuit educated. The follow-on, they turned the Beatles over to a Jew to manage after they did the creating. But the fifth Beatle was Jesuit educated and may have been a Roman Catholic as well.
Well, he's also Sir George Martin, not to be confused with George Martin, the creator of Game of Thrones, who's also Roman Catholic. Mm-hmm. Sir George Martin, as you said, was trained with the Jesuits, I believe, was it Stonyhurst or one of those places. But anyhow, he was also Royal Navy, the Office of Royal Navy Intelligence, and almost certainly involved with MI6, the British version of the CIA. So, yes, the Beatles, originally the Silver Beatles, were a real band. They were out of Liverpool, England, and they had a modicum of talent. They were formed in 1956, the original members being John Lennon, the original Paul McCartney, George Harrison, Pete Best, and Stu Sutcliffe. And they were, for several years, they toured England and Germany, Hamburg. They were a cover band. They did the popular tunes of the day, Elvis and Muddy Waters and so forth. And they probably would have spent the remainder of their career just doing versions of popular songs. However, In 1962, when the Tavistock Institute, which was a think tank out of London, discovered them, they brought in Martin and Epstein, Brian Epstein, who was a homosexual Jew. And they decided to swap out drummers. They had Ringo Starr, Richard Starkey replace Best. And Stu Sutcliffe either was murdered or maybe he died of natural causes. He died of a brain hemorrhage he was like 20 or something. For whatever reason, they decided to get rid of the drummer, and then they were rebranded as the Beatles. Now, before they became the Beatles, they had slick back hair, leather jackets. They want to go for the popular look of the 1950s. So they decided to have them, get rid of the gel, grow their hair relatively long by 1960s or early 1960s standards, and wear a suit and tie. And then they still did covers, but they started coming out with catchy tunes like "She Loves You," "I Want to Hold Your Hand," "Let Me Do," songs like that. So when they were brought over to the United States in February 1964, for about the first year or two, they were fairly innocuous. They had the bubblegum songs. Then, during the 1965, 66, they grew their hair out even longer. Then their songs became darker, suggestive of drugs and rebellion, or even more rebellion. So the Beatles, when they came over to America, were a carefully managed and packaged product. They served a purpose, or they served several purposes. One, they wanted to feminize the culture. They wanted to make it socially acceptable for men to have long hair. Yes, I know it had been popular in the past, but they also wanted to further paganize the culture by popularizing Eastern music. That happened like 66, 67. Also, they wanted to introduce a culture to drugs and free sex and fornication.
Spot on, George. Absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. And if you look back, this is very similar. And another name comes to mind. Dick McSorley, the hippie Jesuit that rode this. So you see the Hegelian dialectic that we talked about before. You have this beast of Rome creating endless, needless war. And then on the other side, you have the hippie Jesuits fomenting unrest over the needless war. Very, very profitable.
Yeah. Jesuit priest, right? Father Richard McSorley.
That's right. The Kennedy Jesuit, Dick McSorley, who walked Bill Clinton through communist Eastern Europe and into Moscow. Go ahead, Hawkeye.
Just the thought of, creating that, the void, and then creating what would fill that void, the stirring the energy and then giving that focus to the youth to where to focus that raw energy. But I think even the Beatles are going to just mention about that, this back to the mass psychological operation of the possibility of changing a band member, and would anybody care? It's if it was noticed, but nobody says anything, because it's like it doesn't matter. The engine or the machine is already
just puppets, right? Yeah.
And the train has already left the station and it's running hard, and who cares at that point? And I think that prepared us for many, many other things. Like I think Colonel mentioned, the name about the possible different identities. Well, what about even Osama bin Laden, right? Getting different footage, looking younger, looking different, looking like an Obama.
Right. There's also they say that Lady Gaga killed a friend right in the start of her career, then stole her identity. There is some talk about that. Yeah, so same thing. Actually, no matter what pretty face they put in front of you, like the dance and play guitar or whatever, it's just doesn't matter. They switch you with other person, and then the public don't really care.
none of this makes sense unless, and Colonel, I want you to get in on this. I know you got something. None of this makes sense unless you see a malignant entity using and manipulating these forces and movements. I have frequently asked the rhetorical questions, not rhetorical. I have frequently asked the question when I show people the proof of the Catholic Intelligence Agency getting deeply involved in racial strife, getting deeply involved in feminism. Who's the female that got the CIA paycheck?
Steinem.
Gloria Steinem, Jew, right? She's the Jew. This Jew female that doesn't sound like the Vatican at all. Giving a Jew a paycheck to lead the far left in feminism. That doesn't sound like something the Vatican would do. What the, pardon my language, guys. Chris Lucas, plug your kids' ears for a minute. What the fuck is the CIA doing paying a leftist Jew to spearhead feminism? What does that have to do with any CIA agenda? It has everything to do with a Vatican agenda. The same thing that dumping drugs into American city streets. The Central Intelligence Agency has done more harm to the American people than any enemy could ever dream of. How is that possible? To include blowing the brains out of a sitting president in broad daylight.
Okay. Johnny, we were talking about the Beatles a moment ago, but rap music, also known as hip hop, was almost a 100% CIA creation. For example, Ice-T, Tracy, whatever it is, the singer Ice-T,
Ice Cube.
or Tracy, whatever it is, he was
one of those ices.
well, he's now an actor. Now, if you think about it, Ice Cube, well, both Ice-T and Ice Cube were both gangsters, but they're now making family flicks, or at least Ice Cube is, where he's doing like weekend getaway, with his wife and kids and things like that. Then you have Ice-T, who's now a cop on television, and he's been a cop a number of times. But one of his songs was Ice-T's song back in the 80s was "L.A. Home with a Body Bag," among other things. And that's one of the few that I can actually repeat. So Ice-T was actually in the Army. He was in one of the, I forgot, 82nd or 101st. It was one of those situations where he either got to go to jail or do a few years in the Army. And if I'm not mistaken, he served in the same. Also, Jimi Hendrix was, I believe, 101st or 80. Okay, I know this may sound like heresy. How dare you confuse 82nd with 101st? Yes, I know they don't like each other. So both Jimi Hendrix and Ice-T were paratroopers, and both had a fairly prominent musical career. Jimi Hendrix wasn't nearly as long as Ice-T. Well, actually, Ice-T's wasn't that long, but he's still alive. So, in other words, the whole purpose of rap, the creation of it back in the 80s, was to induce young black men, for the most part, to be rebellious, to mouth off the police, and to do drugs and engage in violence. They were basically.
Go ahead, George. I'm just going to say this is something that the Vatican has specialized in, and I will rely upon something that we've told you quite a few times. For those of you who remember back to the rise of the one, Barack Hussein Obama, and how much was made of his time as a community organizer, how it was that it never came up that the one who trained him in community organizing was Jesuit Greg Galuzzo, is proof of who controls the media. And this is in Chicago, a city that is absolutely thoroughly owned by the Vatican, just ask the Daly family.
Oh,
so the answer, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is way off topic, but
Pause.
I got to put on your topic.
Let, the Colonel and I am going to stay on topic before you pull a George, and then you can take us off topic. Stand by. Let me just finish my thought, Colonel, and answer my rhetorical question. How is it that the CIA has been so intimately involved in things that are incredibly poisonous to the people they supposedly serve? And that's because the CIA was founded by and for a malignant foreign power, the Vatican. Go ahead, Colonel.
So I was actually going to go back to George's first topic, I think. Now, the Beatles, and the name. Okay, Beatles, scarab beetle, Egyptian, and I just pulled this up. And why is the scarab beetle so important to the Egyptian culture? Well, it was seen as a symbol of regeneration. When Ra took the form of rising sun, he became the god Khepri. Here he rolled the sun across the sky. At sunset, he carried it through the underworld before reappearing at dawn the next day. The larva, that's exactly what the scarab beetle did with a dung ball. They would roll their dung balls, lay their eggs, and then beetles would come out. And as a result, the scarab often represents life cycles, new beginnings, or creations. So we're talking about beetles here. A creation, the creation of rock and roll was the Beatles, because people also thought that the scarab had only a male gender, and being able to reproduce out of just a dung ball seemed miraculous. They didn't understand how they could do it.
That's very Jesuitical.
And Khepri created himself out of nothing, so he was linked with the scarab. And just to your point, just made there, Johnny, is you also think of Hebrew rabbis and their concept of a golem, creating something out of nothing, being as God, creating something, imagining something, and then creating it, giving it life. So the Beatles were essentially that for rock and roll, and that was their name. That's the essence of the esoteric essence of their name.
Outstanding continuity. Agreed. Very, very Jesuit. Of course, we commend the partial work of the late Dave McGowan on showing just how involved intelligence agencies and the military-industrial complex were, particularly in the 60s. But poor Dave only gave you a small portion of the picture, which we tried to do a little bit further in an article. I put up an article. Was it Laurel and Holly on JohnnyCirucci.com? Okay, does anybody else want to hit this topic before we allow George to yank us into a new one?
We're just adding then about
Go Hawk.
A dying and resurrecting figure. I think in part Paul McCartney was pre-66 was, I think, looked at as the leader, maybe even the founder next to John Lennon, and post it almost took a step back. And then I wanted to add that there's the possible supposed death date being September 11th, 1966. September 11th being a significant date, many reasons. I just wanted to add that.
That's great.
Yeah,
he may be. I just thought about this. He may be. That may have been some kind of a ritual to replace him.
Well, yeah, and how about even potentially if it went down as its narrative goes, that Paul McCartney was beheaded in the car accident on September 11th, 1966. So take what you will from that, but I know there's a lot of information out there, but those are significant points that always just have stuck out to me.
And a great point about people being caught up in the illusion of the Beatles, and much like we are with coronavirus now, the facts don't matter. You're in the imagination now. The Jesuits have you. Yeah, the illusion. Excuse me. Yeah.
Yep. Well done. Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. Are we gonna? Ridley, do you have anything?
Well, I had a question about the Walter V thing, so it's totally different what you guys talking about.
Okay, so George, forgive me. I told you I was going to let you go. Let Ridley ask his Walter V question first, and then we'll let you go, and then we'll start wrapping things up.
Well, okay, so you know me, I think Satan's temple on earth is the Vatican, but
Where did you get that? Stop. You are way off base. I don't know what the heck you're talking about. Next question. No, I'm kidding.
Hate
Keep
speech.
going. Hate speech.
I think that's his HQ, but then you look at things like Walter Beath even talks about the Khazars. He quotes the Jewish encyclopedia that states they're from Persian origin and they're Talmudic Jews. And the Talmud is pure blasphemy. And if they're strictly Talmudic Jews, couldn't you classify them as fake Jew? Do you agree with Walter Beath on his position on the Khazars?
I do. I think Walter's teaching on the King of the North Part 2 is the definitive teaching on Judaism and Israel. The definitive teaching on Judaism and Israel. I think he's absolutely spot on. And although the Talmud is not loaded with references, and it's specific Talmuds, which one is it? It is the...
There's 63 books of it, but there's littered across it. There's plenty of blasphemy about Christ and all kinds of things. And the Khazars that he refers to, he talks about the Jewish Encyclopedia definition, and it calls them Talmudic. So I want to be honest when I'm talking about Jews. I think there's a big push by the Vatican to scapegoat them. I'm wondering, what do you think of the Khazars? This is like 65% of Jews right now. Do you think they are, according to Google at least, do you think they're real Jews? And do you think it matters to figure out who the real ones are?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I want to be careful because there are handmaids, there are servants of the Vatican that use this issue. They take this truth and spin it to a very poisonous, toxic extreme. Jews aren't real Jews, so let's go ahead and have another final solution.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to be very careful with this. I will say that it absolutely is a fact that the Vatican resurrected Israel to powerfully destroy proper biblical eschatology. It has been satanically successful. And a big part of that is this constant push of country folk out of the steppes of Russia, convincing them that they are long lost 10 tribes of Judaism, and then getting duped evangelicals to pay for them to relocate to Israel. So I think Professor Veit is absolutely spot on. His King of the North, both 1 and 2, but particularly part 2, is the definitive teaching on modern Israel. Modern Israel has no place in Christian eschatology. None. Zero.
Right. He quotes another piece that says the modern state of Israel is based on Kabbalistic and Talmudic traditions and is far removed from the biblical worship of Yahweh.
Unfortunately true.
That's all.
Unfortunately true.
So, so some of these Jews, they're not such good guys. I mean, it seems like some of these ones are fake ones, but I've also looked into a lot of Israeli Jews that were there and never left, like the Samaritans are still there, sons of Joseph. So,
well, let's be careful with generalizations. Let's be careful with generalizations.
Is that not true?
That's what Rome wants. Rome wants us to generalize and then utilize. Generalized into one group. Colonel, you trying to jump in?
All right, I'm getting a knock on the door. I'll be right back.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just the Bible tells us to beware those who are say they're Jews and are not. That's what we're dealing with here. The true Jews at the time of Jesus followed Jesus. And that's why we are, well, I mean, we are not Israel. We're not Israeli Jews, but we are the true faith. And so if you're talking about Walter Veith, he talks about all of these individual faiths, Islam, Judaism, but he always talks about two belief systems. Okay, and they've always existed since the dawn of time. Before there was Judaism, before there were tribes in Israel, there have been two belief systems. One is the one that, you know, we follow Yahweh and his son, and the other is where you follow the Satan and you know, the Antichrist. So the fact that we're talking now about different religions and different sects of religions that aren't following Yahweh, that is the other religion. Mm-hmm. You can just group them all together. And so Veith makes a very good, I've heard him say it several times, and it really convinced me. He always talks about this. Go ahead, Doc.
We as Christians, you know, have to have compassion for the Jewish people, because they were the original branches, right? Because of their fall, that we were grafted in, right? And
we're supposed to. They're supposed to be jealous.
Yeah. I think that the best thing we can do as Christians is to make them provoke them to jealousy, that they can find the true Messiah. That's all, the best we can do for them, I think.
Yeah, very difficult topic.
I just
go ahead.
I totally agree with that. I just got back. I don't know what I missed, but yeah, I agree with what was just said.
Yeah, so what Rome likes to do in her tactics, what Rome likes to do is to take compromised Jews and enable them as Vatican managers. The most ridiculous example that comes to mind is Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg is the evil Mo Howard face with that haircut, that Three Stooges haircut. The face of Facebook censorship. Do you think that Zuckerberg has any clue what Facebook is, the general procedures of Facebook? He doesn't have the slightest idea. He is simply the Jew face. I'm sure that if I invested the time into it, I could conclusively show you how Facebook was at least an intelligence operation from the beginning, if not a straight Vatican operation, in order to get
I agree with that.
crowdsourcing foolish people. This is absolutely Jesuit to appeal to ego, Ridley, to have human beings appeal to their own ego and volunteer to give up personal identification information.
Correct. Yeah, there's actually a project by the NSA or CIA, I can't remember, that was ended the day Facebook was founded. And it was basically exactly that, a means of getting people to give up their information. This project, it was a social media project, can't remember the name of it, but that project ended the day Facebook was founded. So there is a link there, and it's, I can't remember what it's called, but I can get that for you later.
Proves the point. If I have the time to invest into it, I'm sure I'll find the breadcrumbs there. But as just an example of using prominent Jews, and what's unfortunate is I just have this sense. There's no way to tell for sure. I just have this sense that many of these proxy Jews who are being used as targets for the Vatican are fully aware of the role they're playing. They're fully aware of how they are creating anger and hatred towards their kindred. And they don't give a shit because they got theirs. Mm-hmm. They're rich, they're wealthy, they're enabled. They don't care how much they're angering people over this so-called Jewish Zionist conspiracy fabricated by Rome. So it's very hard to see them and not be angry at the entire process. But we have to keep it in perspective. All right. So unless anybody else has anything, I promised George we would let him yank us into a new direction before we close.
Okay, so I have two more topics I'd like to quickly address, or at least one. You're talking about the Daley family of Chicago. Dick, Richard Sr. and Jr., who ran Chicago forever, and all the other puppets whom they had there. Now, current mayor of Chicago is Lori Lightfoot, who is a black lesbian, but her chief of staff is Maurice Klassen. Klassen got his undergrad degree from Georgetown University, so he's the one who's calling the shots in the Windy City. Now, I wasn't really planning on talking about Lightfoot, but I was planning on talking about a Daley, Sergeant Major Daniel Daley, who was the Sergeant Major of the United States Army who just retired this year, having been in for something like 30 years. Well, Daniel Daley is a member of the Order of St. Maurice. And I'll have to elaborate on this on a different brief, but there are a number of military orders in the U.S. service, the Order of St. Maurice being one of them. So this is a military order and it is a Catholic order. So I know there is so
Check
when
test.
Daley got this prize, hello?
Yeah, you said I know there is, and then we lost you, and then you came back. Go ahead.
Okay, so I know there are several other orders, and I'll have to elaborate on that. So, as I said, Daley was the most senior enlisted member of the United States Army.
George, Doc has the very famous twice awardee Medal of Honor Marine enlisted man listed all in the background. Do you have connections with that turn of the century, Dan Daley?
I don't, but it wouldn't surprise me if they are related somehow.
Right. Okay, keep going.
Also, the other thing I wanted to mention, about 2 hours ago, was how health departments and health ministries, depending on what country you're in, have been basically weaponized this year. They probably have been for years, decades, but this has been especially poignant this year. Basically, these health agencies, whether you're talking about the national, state, provincial, local level, whatever, and basically have been given almost dictatorial and almost divine power based on these suspect tests, these PCR tests. Oh, yes. This is especially true in Europe and America that, yes, we need to shut everything down. We need, yesterday here in America, we had our Thanksgiving. I know in Canada you had it last month. But you had all these governors and mayors in the state saying, stay home, don't travel. And if you do stay home, make sure that you have your mask on at all times, you stay 6 feet apart at all times, you wash your hands at all times, even if you're eating, drinking, or sleeping. Because after all, we don't want to spread the corona hoax. So we're completely justifying all this tyranny we're shoving down your throat because it's for your own good. This is based on rock-hard science. See, we have all these cases, all these people who are testing positive for the corona hoax because our health officials tell us so. So these health officials have essentially the power of life and death, whether you can go watch a movie, whether your business can open or reopen, or if it can open with or without restrictions. And since when do these entities, when were they allowed to be arrogated so much power? I mean, yes, we've talked about the situations of here in America about how much authority the governors have basically stolen from themselves. But
yeah, let me answer your question, George. Let me answer your question. This is a tyrannical takeover that was only possible through a scamdemic. And as you were starting to get into it, I'll go ahead and add the out of control tyranny of the executive office and this ludicrous idea of a so called executive order, whether it's mayors, governors, governorettes, presidents, prime ministers. All of a sudden, they've had this for some time, but they have really exploited it for the outrage of this scamdemic. So I'll go ahead and lump them in for you altogether.
Oh, okay, so since when were they able to arrogate all this power to themselves? Also, you're not even allowed to question their authority. You're not allowed to throw the Bravo Sierra flag on their numbers, on their testing. What are you? Are you anti-science? Are you a Luddite? Are you an obstructionist? Or are you an anti-masker? Are you an anti-vaxxer? Hey, wait a second. You're not a flat earther, are you?
Yeah. So, are you just venting, or do you also have an overall?
No, those are rhetorical questions.
Okay. All right. So let's wind things down here. Let me go through who's still left. Do we have? All right, Colonel.
Oh, well, I was just going to jump in. George, I allow you to question all those things. If you need someone to allow you, I'll do it.
The Colonel's making the sign of the cross over his microphone right now.
According to me, you're allowed.
Okay.
No, that's just psychological. They're going to tell you what you can think, right? So don't believe them. I'll start with the one that I think maybe I'm getting sucked in here, Johnny, and that is the black eye stuff I've done.
Uh-oh.
And I know I've sent you a bunch of stuff. It seems like everybody's in the club, man. I don't have a picture of me with a black eye, unfortunately. I could be in the club too. But
we'll have to do that on our own. Well, next time you come over, we'll punch each other in the face.
Punch each other in the eye and take a picture and then put it on the internet.
But we'll do it simultaneously with right hands. It looked like Rocky 3 or Rocky. What's the end of it? Rocky 2. Rocky 2. Rocky 2. I'm sorry. The end of
Number three, when he takes on Clubber Lang, Apollo's help.
Sorry, Rocky 2. Right.
But I did find, and I won't go into it all because it's huge. There's just a lot of stuff associated with it. Obviously, it goes to the eye of Horus, but there's also a lot of specific Catholic doctrine on the philosophy of the left and the right eye that emerged from the Middle Ages. I'd love to have Nick go find me these treatises, but there's just a lot of philosophy within the Catholic Church about eyes. But the one I'll focus on for this purpose is uncovered an old Journal of Medicine in Scotland that talked about how priests in the Inquisition used to go around pricking people to give them marks of the devil, and that black eyes were considered marks of the devil. And it just made me think maybe there's a connection here with these secret societies that are giving these celebrities marks that they can't hide, and that they're going to be seen, and then people like us are going to see them with these weird marks, and we're going to question them. And I think it may be a way of, much in the same way that the Inquisition marked witches, it may be a way that we're being signaled that they're marking these people, that these people are part of something, and that we're supposed to hate.
Just adding to that, the consistency of which eye also being marked. A lot of people get either their right eye, and then you have the I don't know when it happened for Bergoglio, but it was I believe his left eye that got bruised. But there's not as many left eyes as there are right eyes when you see. And then you also see it in cinema, certain films with certain Christ-type characters having their eyes closed, and then of course the 2004 Passion film by Mel Gibson having his the Jim Caviezel, what is this? His right eye was a dart or closed,
Closed.
and his right arm was pulled out of joint during the leading up to the crucifixion scene. Anyway,
And
just wanted to-
I'm getting a lot of bounce here.
So Hawkeye, I'm so excited to have Hawkeye. We're gonna figure out what that echo thing is, and but don't worry about it now. We'll have it for next time. Just way too excited to have you. Go ahead, finish, Colonel.
Oh, because so in kind of pagan mythology, the idea that an eye was closed meant you had an eye into the spiritual world. So there's that.
Well, listen,
certainly-
I think this is first of all, Colonel. Let me tell you, I think this is patently absurd. Line of reasoning. Next, you're going to be telling me that there's some kind of connection between the outfits that the doctors and priests wore to protect themselves against the plague has been carried through to today and is being worn by people. Come on, I mean, let's get grounded here. That's just patently absurd.
Right. It's crazy. Anyway, I thought it was very interesting that the Inquisition priests would prick people and call them witches, and now we're finding that people are getting pricked. And we're questioning whether they're witches.
I think it's brilliant. I think it's a brilliant connection.
The other thing I was just go more into how this left-right, this worldwide left-right conflict is coming to the fore. Every day you hear about more, as George was talking about, how do they have the authority to do this stuff on the left, to just take your body, give you vaccinations, force you to take a test, make you wear a mask. But on the right side, we're starting to now see, populist uprisings. We're starting to see, people shaking their fists on the right. You can't do this. So it seems like there is a orchestrated worldwide conflict, straight ahead. And we've talked a lot about the Jester and the Joker, and how the Joker is essentially, the Jester is a two-faced. Goes to Janus, which is as Eric 777 has said, or Eric Bowman has said, that Janus is the god of the Jesuits. It's a two-faced god, a Roman-only god. It has no Greek, no Greek antecedent, and it's two-faced. It's the idea that duality, and now we have left versus right, and I think it's setting up almost exactly like that, even in the American presidential election, where we still don't know what's going to happen. You could see either one getting in. It's a critical time right now. I think
it is. Yes, that duality has been ridden and exploited for the use of so-called secret societies. The Templar two-headed Roman eagle. One face for the uninitiated and one face for the initiated. This duality is necessary when you come to realize that the agenda of the secret group is, pardon my language, fucking satanic. So you have to put one face outside. Oh, we're here for philanthropy. We have to give our money in secret. Really? Can I throw the bullshit flag on that? Anyway, so the overall picture on the duality. Of course, the Templar double-headed eagle adorns the flag of the Russian Federation. So all you Russians in there, if you have any antipathy, any concern about any realization that the Jesuit-run Vatican hates you and might have some control over you, look at your flag. Then when you're done, look at the flag of the FSB, which is the inverted Maltese cross. The blue fields and the red fields are inverted. The most powerful organization in your country, the FSB, has a big old Maltese cross as its flag. So I'm afraid my Russian friends.
I would just finish up with, you're not required to believe either side. You're not required to. You could
question. You're just required to be awake.
Right. You can question both sides with equal tenacity, and should. And that's how you'll survive this, spiritually and physically, I think.
Agreed. Ridley and then Hawkeye. Ridley, you have anything to close us out with?
No, I just, we're kind of chatting a little bit about what I mentioned in our general chat in your Discord. Maybe invite your viewers to our Discord.
Sure. I have now added the Resistance Rising Discord invitation to everything. I will continue to put it. It's in when I upload something, when I say support Johnny, in the abouts of all our videos, I now have the invitation, a link that will bring you right to the Resistance Rising Discord server. I guess I'll go ahead and put it in the chat. I got to grab it. Make sure Flat Earth Chris did a great job. Guys, 5 simple questions that you answer through a verification process. I am amazed at how many moths and tsetse flies fly in and can't be bothered to answer the verification questions. All you got to do is answer the verification questions, and you're in, as long as you behave yourself. I will go ahead and do that. Let me grab that. Grab the link, the invitation link, and you're welcome to connect with any of us. And I'm Johnny Cirucci 6096. You'll see a lot of others in there. And here's the great thing about Discord is you can jump in if you're on a voice channel. Anybody else can jump in whenever they want. However, George, you have to realize you need to disconnect. Otherwise, you stay on the voice channel hour after hour after hour, and everybody hears your Hillary voting dogs barking and your nieces and nephews talking to you and your cousin asking you to help them change the oil in their car and so
The home renovation project.
And your home renovation project. Go ahead, Hawkeye.
Just adding to the tarot card, the Trump card pack, Trump cards of the tarot pack. So number 16, the Tower. Number 17, the Star. Number 18, and interesting, the number 19, the Sun. So there's only 20. Well, there's 22 cards, but it starts at 0. But it's interesting that we're at the Sun. If we're at the Sun card, and it's not about laying out a timeline, but it's just an observation. If we're at number 19 because of supposed COVID-19, you have the blonde-haired child riding the horse, the white horse. Next card is Judgment, and the next card after that is the World. And then I also wanted to add this idea of why so the dates and so on. Like today's, what Hendrix came up. It's Jimi Hendrix's birthday today. I don't know how old he would be if he'd still be alive. It's also Bruce Lee's. I think it's Bill
78.
78.
There you go. But it's like back to this idea of why certain events happen on certain dates, and back to the idea of the drum beat of the Superior General, or the Sun Tzu, or the drum beat of Sun Tzu. And I also at some point wanted to bring up the question of, if we've examined Art of War, it comes up often, and and Sun Tzu, and when it was published in 1772, supposedly quote unquote translated by a Jesuit in China, Jean Joseph Marie Amiot, I believe. Can we apply the same filter to possibly the King James Bible? Possibly, was he edited by Francis Bacon, aka Sir Toby Matthew, who would have been under Superior General Claudio Acquaviva? And if of course, and the Jesuit has no will of his own, but he's a perendac cadaver. As what could then the King James Bible, if we apply the same filter, then sure, it may have the Textus Receptus, the superior manuscript, have been used, but if it had been intentionally written and published in 1611, 6 years after the gunpowder plot in 1605, possibly I wanted to ask that question. Okay, why and what could have been used or applied to the scriptures to steer us in a certain whatever direction? Anyway, just wanted to add that.
Brilliant. Go ahead.
And thanks very much. I'm glad I was able to catch you guys. Good.
You bet, Hawk. I'm gonna wait for it. Got a really bad echo. Yeah. So we'll iron out that audio issue. Maybe we can get you hooked up with a headset or something. But yeah, absolutely spot on. It's a contention. We could do a whole show on that issue of Francis Bacon and Shakespeare and Toby Matthew and the King James Bible. Absolutely, and the gunpowder plot. a whole show on that. But very valid, plausible, if not probable. So, Doc, let's go ahead and let you finish us out. We're a little bit over time, and thank you for your great hosting job.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if you have just 5-10 minutes, so just drop some names, sir, because I remember when you had an extensive list of Donald Trump appointees, right? Like an Excel spreadsheet on all the people he appointed to his government, and then I start paying attention on Biden now. Um, so I have a couple of names, like Anthony Blinken was gonna be the Secretary of State. So interesting thing that he went to Dalton in New York, right, the same school as Jeffrey Epstein, and he has Jewish parents, but he was married by a rabbi and a Catholic priest at Holy Trinity Catholic Church in Washington D.C. because his wife Evan Ryan is Roman Catholic, went to Boston College, Johns Hopkins University. So this would be, if Biden takes the office, it will be his Secretary of State.
Doc, when the Guardian played that, Doc, when the Guardian had that headline, what was the headline? Biden's cabinet looked radically different from Trump's.
It's a sharp break with Trump
The
era.
sharp break from Trump. No. Keep going, Doc.
And next we have nominate Avril Haines for Director of National Intelligence. So Avril Haines went to Georgetown University for her Juris Doctor, and also she owned a small bookstore, independent bookstore. And so this is from Wikipedia. So Adrian's hosted a number of literary readings, including erotica readings, which became a media focus when she was appointed by Obama to be deputy director of the CIA. So very interesting. Yes, he went from.
And there's a secret door in her bookstore where they go down into the basement and have rituals.
Probably, yeah. I would say, yeah.
Definitely a sharp break. Definitely a sharp break from what we had with Trump.
Then we have Biden nominate first Latino and immigrant to run Homeland Security. Alejandro Mayorkas. Alejandro Mayorkas is a Cuban Jew. He went to Loyola.
How did they scour? How many Cubans, how many millions of Cubans did they have to go through to find a Jew to prop up to that position?
Yes, his father was a Cuban Jew, his mother a Romanian Jew. He went to Loyola Law School, 1985.
A Jesuit trained Cuban Jew, because the hoses aren't open enough with the Hispanic Roman Catholics blowing into this country. Let's go find a way for far left communist Catholic Joe Biden to open them up some more.
Right. Sharp break from Trump.
Sharp break. Sharp break. Build that wall. Build that wall Trump did.
And last but not least, so we have the new climate czar is John Kerry. We don't need any introduction. Right? Yale's Colin Bones, altar boy, Catholic, John Kerry coming back. Yeah,
and he's gonna come up with all the new tyrannies we're gonna have to bend over and take, so that we can address a completely non-existent threat.
Yes, yeah, and then the climate side, yeah. So
isn't this the piece of shit that had who was the one that had Chilean sea bass at some kind of wedding for their daughter or some shit? Meanwhile, they're running around talking about how everybody has to be eating bread and crackers and water because of climate change. I'm pretty sure it was him.
Okay.
I think of John Kerry. I think of that, that some old comedy where the guy has a sheriff's badge on, and then later on you see him and he's running the bank, or he's also a doctor. And they're like, well, weren't you the sheriff? No, I'm a doc. I'm the doctor too, and whatever. they just recycle these guys. Of course.
Yeah, it can be used any position, right? Yeah.
So was it John? So if I may say so, Felipe, John Kerry is probably about as qualified to be the climate change czar as say Leon Panetta.
Yeah, I was thinking about him. Yeah, Johnny always brings him up like he's shoo-in in every place.
Or Janet Napolitano. She in addition to being director of Homeland Security, she was born in New York. She also ended up being the governor of Arizona, and she was the president or the regent of the University of California. So they just. So John Kerry Forbes was a senator for a long time from New York. He ran against George W. Bush in presidents, and he served somehow in the Obama it was what, Secretary of State or something like that. So you're right.
Each new job is a sharp break.
Sharp break from the previous.
Yeah.
Sharp break from the previous. That's why Barack Obama absolutely fully stopped the war on terror, and that's why Donald Trump fully closed up the borders. Sharp break from each previous administration. By the way, it was Al Gore. It was climate change Al Gore who had a gazillion-dollar wedding for his daughter that includes Chilean sea bass. Meanwhile, he's burning up millions and millions of carbon credits coming in on his private flights, but he wants you to be eating crackers and water so that you can save the rainforest.
Yeah.
All right, great job.
Okay. Yeah.
Great job, man. Fantastic. So what a team that we have today. What a phenomenal team that we have today. Old and new. Great job, each and every one of you guys. Love you so much. So love to have you in the next time. Let's say, I don't know if anything's going to happen spontaneously over the weekend. Hey, you guys are absolutely welcome to say, hey, Johnny, let's do a stream. I can host if you want. If you got a bunch of subject matter that you want to talk about, all you got to do is show up here in the Team Brief server, and we can hit it off the cuff. Anybody else, I'm sure would be happy to. Doc's doing a great job of hosting. The Ngudian is a great host. Can manipulate our software to do that. So anytime you guys want to jump in. In the meantime, he's the next one on Monday at 11. So if I don't see you over the weekend, I'll see you then.
Yes.
Okay, John.
Okay. No, we need to go, George. I'm done. Overtime.
Okay. One last point.
What would it be without one last point? Go.
Okay, so yes, we're about as spontaneous as say Anthony Fauci speaking at Georgetown University on January the 10th, 2017, 10 days before Trump was inaugurated. And he said, well, sometime during the Trump administration, there'll be a surprise pandemic. We don't know how it'll come about, but there's going to be a surprise pandemic.
Yeah, good point. Actually, George, I bust your chops, but it's a great point. It's a great example. Hawkeye, so excited that you jumped in, by the way. And Hawkeye said that his audio had little to do with his hardware and everything to do with his connection. Not the first time something like that has happened. Surprise, surprise. So, fantastic job, everybody. Love you all, my flying monkeys in the audience. Hopefully, we converted a few visiting sports fans. Perpan, Chris, Charles, Heretics, Nana, all you guys, Luke. Hopefully, we'll see you again real soon. If I don't see you over the weekend, we'll see you on Monday at the Ngudian's house.
Yeah, sure.
All right, guys. Love
Thanks,
y'all.
everyone. Thanks.
Yeah.
Take care.
Take care. Thank you.
Take care, Johnny. Take care, Hawk.
Bye-bye.
And
Bye-bye, George.
and Chris and Ridley and whoever else that might be out there.
Okay.
Thank you, George.